have a very tortured relationship with liberalism, and liberals, for the most part, really hate me. But I think that there really needs to be some soul searching done by the liberal establishment about what their priorities are. Um, I work at a parts store in the past 10 years. I've worked in a shop. I've worked in a parts store, and the stuff liberals are on, the political things that liberals are find important, critical race theory, intersectionality, this kind of stuff is just resoundingly ridiculed in shops and parts stores and job sites everywhere in the country. And it's not necessarily because people don't agree with it. A lot of people don't agree with it. It's just because it's forced down people's throats, and it feels like social engineering. And I think it feels like social engineering because it is social engineering. It's led by academics who spend all of their time coming up with these rather grandiose theories of society and of what society should be. And there's a place for that, but it's become such an industry, and there are so many quote unquote philosophers doing this type of work that stuff becomes part of a professional expectations instead of just some asshole's thoughts in their head. There's not that much new that can be said from Plato until now as far as theory goes. There are human institutions get corrupted. Nobody really knows what knowledge means, but you can claim to have knowledge and have power. People who control material resources have power. All this stuff is really basic stuff. But it's once you get into the type of social engineering that happens with critical race theory, which is, white culture is somehow always bad, is always oppressive. It is an oppressor's culture. Most people don't even think about culture at all, ever. They never think about their culture. It's just how they do things. It's just their way of life. And they never sit, 99% of the world doesn't sit down and critically assess their own cultural mores, because that's an academic exercise. It affects the way you lived your life in an everyday way, but as long as there's some way to communicate across different cultures, people don't really think about it. And the fact of the matter is if it's an American culture, it probably shares a lot of the same things. And we're kind of straining at gnats as to where these cultures are. And these cultures get described in such rigid and gate-kept ways. And it's just frustrating to people in the working class. And, everybody wants to say Trump won and that sort of stuff. But really, more and more people are just checking out of the political system because you got a charlatan and a showman in Trump who's obviously lying all the time, but is entertaining. And you got the Democrats who are basically on some bullshit that nobody cares about. And, if liberals are to get back in the game, they're going to have to stop listening to the academics and the activists and the community organizers. And they're going to start having to listen to regular, everyday, normal people without an axe to grind what they want. And what regular, everyday, normal people want is better jobs, more money, good education, and future for their kids. It's not that complicated. Healthcare. People want healthcare. People want healthcare, food, clothing, shelter, education for their kids, a future for their family. That's what they want. They don't want to be told that their culture is wrong. It's just a total turnoff. Whether it's true or not is irrelevant. You're trying to win political battles. You're not trying to invent a utopian society. And some of us do that. I do that work. I try to invent utopian societies. but I don't see what I do as anything other than a fantasy. It's a creative work of fantasy. It's not to be implemented in policy in any way, shape, or form. And the things that I want implemented in policy are like mutual aid, a certain type of pedagogy and education, unions, and cooperatives. I want those things supported, and these are practical. This is a practical type of agenda that liberals could easily adopt that would make a difference in people's everyday life. It's the kitchen table issues again. And we got to get away from academic led politics. Academics are good for theory. They're good to give you some insight to things, but they can't lead the politics. They got to be sort of in the background and play a role, but they can't be the ones determining what the policy agenda is. It needs to be people with some kind of engagement with people at their kitchen tables. Anyway, I feel bad for liberals. I think it's a tough time for them. I think the biggest mistake that could have ever been made was to do all the CRT intersectionality stuff and then to support the Gazan genocide. And it just made liberals look like total hypocrites. And, people aren't going to vote for a hypocrite. People will vote for a liar, but they won't vote for a hypocrite. So, anyway, we'll see y'all later. Peace, y'all.